Mike Goldstein is back, continuing his interesting story about his time in Scientology, the Sea Organization, and in Denver. On this episode, we're actually going to get to the point where he actually leaves and routes out of the Scientology Sea Organization and moves to Denver, Colorado. And we're going to carry on from there. He's got some interesting stories and some interesting viewpoints. Stick around. I think you're going to enjoy them. Welcome, everybody, to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher, and I'm here with my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady. G'day, Janice, and aloha.
G'day, Mark. G'day, everybody, and welcome to our channel here. Hey, we're in the summer, and it's blazing hot here in Vegas, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, because you got your pool, and you can, people can jump in, and your granddaughter and all that, so that's good. But it is hot.
We're swimming twice a day.
That's great.
Yeah,
it's the only way to stay cool.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Well, we have a returning guest who's been very popular, and we've done several shows with him, and we're just continuing with his story. So, Janice, why don't you go ahead and introduce him, and we'll bring him on.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have Mike Goldstein, otherwise known as Golds, back.
Howdy, Mike.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi, Mike. Good.
Good.
Thanks for coming back on.
Oh, sure. My pleasure.
Yeah.
On the last episode, we were talking about, Denver, when you were there helping your dad's business, took a leave of absence from the Sea Org with your wife, and then turned the business around. And then in the meantime, also got the Denver organization rocking and rolling in the early to mid 70s. And then the management sort of intervened, and you were off to a ComEv somewhere, or, committee of evidence, right?
Right.
As usual, management knows when to step in.
Well, it was they and the GO got together, and the GO definitely wanted me out. And
Right.
Management at the time, I didn't know this, but they wanted me back, Rebecca and I back at Flag. And so they worked with the Flag rep in Denver and the AG information to get all this information on me. And then they had to get me out to LA. They knew if they just said they were going to call me, I wouldn't go. So it was on a different pretext that I was out there. When I got there, I was told I'd been removed from post and I was being ComEd and all that sort of thing. And so that's kind of where we left.
Yeah, just a comment from my own experience, and I know my mother got removed based on the same thing as you, where the GO just made up lies and tried to come up with any dirt they could in order to remove powerful executives that got too much power and too many people believed and followed them.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No, can't have that.
So I get out to LA, and then I find out, that I'm being ComEd and removed, and I was being ComEd. I had to go over to the CC, that is where the ComEd was, Celebrity Center, and I'd go there at night. But during the day, of course, I had to work. So the first thing they had me do is go up and start cleaning out the attic, all these different things, and rearranging that. So that's what I did. And then, so most of my time was spent working for the FOLO. And they started me off doing that kind of a thing. And then I ended up in their management. And I actually ended up over at,
Where was the FOLO at that time?
The FOLO was on Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh, in the Hollywood Inn.
I think they just put up, that sign. They just put up the big Scientology sign.
Okay, in the basement of the Hollywood Inn.
That's right.
I think so, yeah. Right.
Yeah,
It was on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yep.
Right. And that's where it was. And then I would walk from there over to Celebrity Center to be ComEd.
Oh, down on La Brea.
Right.
Okay.
And, so they kept giving me different jobs, and I kept doing them, and they gave me another one. And I ended up actually going over and helping run the LA org, which was kind of fun. But this is the kind of stuff I was doing during the day, and then every night I would walk over to the to Celebrity Center. And what's interesting, I just remembered, was right near the Celebrity Center, I would walk through this parking lot of this motel, and this was at the time when the Hillside Strangler was going.
Oh,
This
yeah.
this had to be 1978, I think, or 77.
Okay.
And they got somebody from Celebrity Center, a student who was killed. And I would walk through this parking lot every night. And later on, when they caught the guy or the guys, the two of them that were doing it, they were in that same motel. I walked by their room every night.
Wow.
It was weird.
I've not heard of that. They
Yeah.
got someone from Celebrity Center.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure one of the victims was from there.
Wow.
Yeah, but
Mike, in 1978, I was out in the flag readiness unit at the Hollywood Inn, and we stayed at the Wilcox, which was not too far away. And then we had to walk again to CC, to Celebrity Center on La Brea, or the Hollywood Inn. And at night, it was always like, I don't know what Hollywood Boulevard, the last time I've been there, it's much nicer than it was in 1978.
Yeah.
Because you literally put your beams on and you just walked from A to B. You didn't talk to anybody because you didn't know who they were or what was going to happen.
Yeah, pretty crazy time. Do you remember that? Wasn't that 78? Was that 78 with the Hillside Strangler?
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mother had already passed when you were going over to Celebrity Center. Chris Maney would have been the commanding officer.
And Captain Bill was no longer there. He was not there anymore when I was there, I don't think. Because I'd been working with him when I was in New York. He would fly out to Denver all the time. But I don't think he was there anymore anyway. I don't quite remember. But I mainly remember being ComEd and working for them. And
okay.
And the ComEd was kind of a joke because there was lots of the stuff, like you said, that the GO had written up. Most of that. And the things were like, they would bring back, like as I had mentioned, when I started the OR, I just went in and took it over. And it wasn't anything but a feeder unit to Vegas. And we made it a class 4 org immediately. We didn't go through, you're supposed to be a class 0 org, work your way up. We just did it. And so when I went to Mary Sue for approval, we already were delivering class 4 services. And so that was a big in the write-up. Plus, I can't remember his name. It was a guy I knew on Flag, and he was out at Pubs US at the time. This is in 75 that we started, and we needed materials, and I knew he was out there, and I called him up, and this is right after Mary Sue approved it, and I said, we need tapes, we need all this stuff. Well, they didn't have any money, so he says, I'll tell you what, I said, I promise we'll pay it. I'll pay you, but we need everything right now. So he sent a whole truckload of all their tapes and books and packs and everything. And we paid it off, but this was a big thing in the ComEd that I had gotten all these materials. And then I'd mentioned that we wanted to buy a building, the Catholic Register downtown, which Herbie didn't approve. But there was also another thing. I had a chance to buy a place called El Dorado Springs, a town near Boulder in the mountains. They were famous for like their spring water and ski and mountain climbing. But one of our staff, his family owned the city. They had like a whole area. They owned most of it. It was in his family, and it was kind of run down the area. And they wanted to sell it. So I was looking at trying. I had this idea that if I bought it, we could have a Scientology city. And that sort of thing. That was all in there, all that kind of stuff. So all these things they kept bringing up in the comment, these horrible things that I'd supposedly done. And meanwhile, the people doing the comment were just laughing during the whole time. But
wow, yeah,
nobody's like taking it serious because we kind of knew that it was all just to get me out and get us back to Flag, right? That was pretty the whole thing.
Going back to, you talked about Pubs US. Was that Foster Tompkins that did that for you?
I'm trying to remember, because I remember this guy used to, when we were talking about the weddings on the ship all the time. The Sadie Hawkins. Every night I go down there and we'd sit and we'd drink beer together. This guy on the ship, on all these weddings, we'd meet every night and have another wedding. And
Foster was in a lot of the weddings.
Yeah, maybe it was fun. And a great guy, great guy. I just can't remember who it was, but yeah, he got all that stuff out to me on credit. The whole truck arrived. That we were in a house at the time. It was before we even got into the main buildings or built the org at all. So
because that's something he would do.
Yeah, he said, "Well, Mary Sue proved it good. I'm just going to do it." Great, man. Thanks. I promise we'll get you the money, which we did.
Right.
But to them, there's just another crime to write down. Something else horrible. So anyway, I was out there for some months, and then finally at the end of it, he said, "Look, they basically just said that's what everybody wants. They just want you out of Denver and go back to Flag. They didn't want to do anything else." So I got back to Denver, and we had to make some money because I had bills and stuff. And so I went out and made some money selling door to door, and paid off all my bills and made enough money to have money that we could have some money when we leave, because I didn't want to go there with no money, no cash. So paid off all the bills, got enough cash, rented a U-Haul, and then put all of our stuff in there and just took off. A little U-Haul attached to my car, little trailer. And that's how all of our stuff was in there.
You being you and Rebecca Goldstein Jessup.
Rebecca Jessup Goldstein, and we also had a 2-year-old. So
okay.
And we drove and we camped out. I bought a bunch of camping equipment, and we stayed at KOA stations, campgrounds, all the way. We went to Connecticut to visit her family, and then down to Clearwater, right? And so they put me on post as SO chief. And
Sea Org chief, as in
I was in charge of all the Sea Org orgs in the world.
You're a manager for it, right?
I was managing the Sea Org orgs.
Yeah.
And Rebecca was, of course, auditing or something, some tech job. And we were on different schedules and that sort of thing. Pretty crazy. But the only time I'd been to Clearwater was that time that I went when Pat Broker and Mike Smith, when I went down there to visit. That was it. So now I'm actually working there. Yeah.
Well, was Irene Derman the CO of the management org then at that time?
Yep, she sure was. That was
and Jack Derman was senior, or he was whatever
ethics officer or something. He was, right. Her husband was ethics officer. Was that his name?
Right. Yeah.
Jack,
and then
and Franny was like staff captain or something.
That's right. And Mo Samuels was the FFR, the flag rep. I remember this because I used to tell this when I was in the Sea Org. I just got there and I was delivering telexes around. The Clearwater building fire had happened, and you guys were in this big, like, sort of open. I forget what they called it. Remember that?
Yeah. Big building. It was all open with desks. All the desks were all together, so you'd have somebody sitting next to you, across from you, all like that, right?
Yeah.
And
Marion Witcher was in AVC, which was right there. I think Hannah was there too. I'm just remembering all these different people, but I remember Irene because she had a presence about her, as a commanding officer.
I remember Irene real well. Yeah, she was the CO. She was my senior. We went from me to Irene and Franny. That's right.
Just so people, Irene Derman was Irene Dunleavy, and then later she was married to Tony Dunleavy, and then later she was married to Bill Howie, so Irene Howie. And she had been a very successful, my mom got her back in the Sea Org and had her at Celebrity Center, and then she was taken from there and put on as commanding officer of ASHO. And then I guess she did so well there, that's when they ended up pulling her to Flag. Yeah.
Well, she was there when I got there. They were on.
And when I got there, they just were finishing the renovations of the Clearwater building, like for the, I guess the part that the AIDS offices were in the Clearwater building didn't burn, because I remember Diana was CS6 and Sue Rabage, Pineapple, was her secretary. That's who I went and saw. These are the people I remember up there. I remember Franny up there. And Ken Urquhart had his office up there as personal communicator, and John McGinley. I just running through my brain the different people that were up there. It's funny.
Right. There was this little British guy who was her communicator, Irene's communicator. Do you remember his name? A little guy, little British guy. I don't know.
No. John Nelson. I don't know.
No, I never saw him before.
See, You can't
he was
ask me because I left Clearwater in April
Right.
'77. And then I came back in November, December '78 for a mission. And then I was gone again until,
Right.
I don't know, the '80s.
Yeah. Anyway, that's
well,
just my little reminiscence about
yeah, it
for
was.
people that are there.
I remember that. Yeah, I don't remember a lot of the people. Be honest with you, I just remember, because it was, to me, being in that management was a nightmare. It was horrible for me. It
I have a
was.
vivid memory. I have a visual memory of you sitting at your desk, going like, you were like not really happy. I literally can remember you
Yeah,
sitting there,
the
like
whole
now,
time.
right now, because I'd be coming to nudge telexes or whatever. I was a telex nudger, and
Yeah.
you'd be like, you didn't look happy sitting there.
It was. I thought it was so ridiculous because I didn't think. I thought it was a complete joke. None of these people. We'd have these management meetings, and none of these uh, guys that were managing the orgs had ever even worked in orgs, let alone run them, and they didn't know what they were doing. And Irene really didn't. She didn't know what she was. It was just having done that in the orgs. I went. I remember talking to her, which really got her angry, saying, "You know what? You give me 5 people, and I could run this whole thing better than you guys are doing." I mean, I would just say it to her. I said, "These people don't know how to run it. You get a good ED, and you train them, and then let them run the org, and it'd be easy, But you guys, so on these evals, it was so stupid, and it just got worse and worse. And they kept coming up with these really. I remember the one program where they wanted to get particle flow, speed of particle flow determines power. So they put like tape in front of the desks and people had to run on one side or the other. You had to run everywhere you were going. That was speed of particle flow. It was just stupid things like this. These programs. Yeah.
Mike, do you remember? Were you around for the 339R mini programs? Where like you had to write. It was based off the LRHED 339R, which I can't remember if that was the birthday game or whatever. But like they'd write little get people to write little mini programs to get done to make things happen.
I don't remember. I just
Who
remember
would?
sitting there like
Managers would, and anyway,
it was ridiculous.
Goofy stuff.
It was the whole thing. I just figured this is a nightmare. People didn't even know what they were doing in a system that wasn't doing anything, and it was plus I didn't really like the way we were living. We had a room at the Fort Harrison, but and we had a little baby in a crib, but I think we were making 17 a week at the time.
1720.
Yeah.
You were at the Fort Harrison. You weren't at the Quality Inn.
No,
we didn't have it then yet, Janice. We hadn't bought it.
We were living at the Fort Harrison.
We didn't buy the Quality Inn until Knott's started. We needed the space in the Fort Harrison.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This was before Knott's for sure. And so, we'd be in there and they wanted us to pay for our air conditioning. I'm going to pay for air conditioning. It's like $5 a week. I'm not paying. That's not most of my. I'm not. But they use our rooms as auditing rooms for the PCs. So we had to clean up the room, make sure it was all clean, and then they turn the air conditioning on for the PCs and turn it off unless I paid. And I refused. It only was 2 days, and I said, "That's it. I'll pay."
You just reminded me. My first dormitory in the Fort Harrison. Frank McCall was the dorm captain. Do you remember Frank McCall?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we no air conditioning unless everybody chipped in.
That's when I proposed that you could pay everybody here. I knew how much they were making, and I was saying, I put a proposal. I said, "Why don't you, pay every staff member $500 a week? They could live wherever they want to live." And oh my God, did they come down on me? So I didn't get, everything kind of rubbed me wrong there. The whole place. It was just, I just couldn't take it. And what was really difficult is, as I mentioned to you, that it was the flag rep and the AG info that got me removed, right? And to them, this guy, now I'm back and everything's kind of funny to people, that how they got me out of the org, right? And to the people at the ship, to the people at the base, this guy, his name was Mark Feldhammer, and he was like a hero for getting rid of me, right? He was like, this guy, saying this guy got rid of gold, this guy did this, all this. And I had to listen to this stuff about this character, because I knew he was flagged up because he couldn't do anything else, in New York. That's why I sent him for training. So they wanted to bring him. They had a big problem in Africa, and they wanted to bring him to flag and send him on a mission to Africa. It was this whole big thing. And so I'm thinking, oh boy, what a mistake. And, oh no, you're just saying that because it was one of my orders, right? And no, you're just saying that because, he got you removed. No, he's fantastic. I'm telling you, this guy couldn't do anything. And then, so they bring him to flag like he's just some kind of hero, right? And they send him to fellow in Africa, whatever that fellow was,
Johannesburg.
And, yeah. 2 weeks he's going, I want to go home. He's writing. You saw telexes. He was writing these telexes. Please, can I go home? I don't want to be here. And they finally, they tried. Can't you handle him? I'm not going to handle him. To hell with you guys. So they finally brought him back, and they had him working in Mimeo until they finally let him go back to Denver. But it was like the whole just being there was just a nightmare every day, and it finally got to a point where when they got this idea with some eval that I think Irene and Franny did, where it was like, we're in the mission business, so we need to send out missions. So they started sending everybody out on missions. It was like this, we just got to send missions out. And they would run down those lanes, and they would just come to some guy that was working on, one of the managers. They go, come on, you're going to New York. And they grab the guy and they run him into mission briefing, and it was all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking here, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to leave my kid. That's it. So please don't do this with me. So one of the guys comes down. It was that little guy from Britain, the little Britain guy, and he had these like high shoes, clogs, where he was like on little lifts, and he comes running down the thing. Golds, you're going to Miami. Golds, you're going to Miami. You're not going? It was like I wouldn't move, and I go, no. He goes, what do you mean? What do you mean you're not going? I'm not going. But you have to. No, I'm not going. So he runs back up to Irene and Franny. They sat at the same, right across from each other. And desk. He whispers to them, and I kind of looking out of the corner of my eye, and Franny says, "It's okay. It's okay, Golds. You can go." And I go. And then Irene just stands up, you asshole, and she starts screaming the whole thing. And, and I just flipped her off, right? That's it. I'm set to see her husband, right? In ethics, right? What's the matter? You refuse to go on a mission? No, I'm not going on a mission. I'm staying here with my kid. I'm not doing this. It's stupid anyway. It's not going to get anything done. So I'm not leaving my family. And so I got put in confusion and all this kind of thing. And this went on. It was just me against them again. That sort of craziness. And the only reason I didn't leave, and I even told them going up to confusion, I said, look, I would be out of here if I didn't think if Rebecca would go. But I don't think she wants to leave, so that's why I'm staying here. That's it. That's the only reason. You want me to? And so finally one night when I came back because I'd work, down there, I'd have to go down there and clean the place when all the other people were gone. And I come back one night and I was talking to Rebecca, and I find out she wanted to go too, So it was like, and now we both realized, because she also found out she was pregnant with my son, with our son, So we didn't want to bring another kid up in the sea. That was it. It was hard enough for my daughter was not doing well in the nursery, and she was always getting rid of my daughter. Because they had the big wheels. All the kids had those big wheels that they'd ride around, and she would get she's 2 years old. She get all the kids. Let's go find our parents. Come on, they break out of the nursery in their big wheels, and they come up in the tech area, and it would disturb sessions, and they'd write my daughter up. She's 2 years old, write her up, a break from the nursery.
I have a photo of those big wheels with Darius Wilhare and Cole Hauser, ripped from Yellowstone. Those two on those big wheel bikes outside the cabanas where the nursery was at that time.
Oh my
Yeah, I
God,
was just gonna. I
sorry.
was going to describe the nursery in those days were two cabana rooms back in near the garage, and the nannies were well intentioned. There's Joanna Attlee and some these people, they were well intentioned, but they were
Yeah.
overwhelmed with all the kids they had, and it was hard. And it wasn't until later when they got the quality and where they could actually create a better environment. But yeah, no, the kids were right there. I mean, you could go see them easily. And I remember the executives used to go and get their kids to bring them to the lemon tree during meal times and stuff like that.
Yeah. My daughter she hated it there. We go in the
Yeah.
lemon tree, and she would do stuff like she would get just escape, run over, and always want to be in the pool, but she went in the pool and took a crap. And I had to go fish it all out and she got rid. She was always doing
We got a floater.
Yeah, that's right. Unbelievable. That kid, she hated it. Oh man, she did everything she could.
Oh dear.
And I knew she didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to live. And when we finally realized that, God, neither of us want to be here, it was like we just blew. We just took up, and we just at night. It was in the middle, right. It was like late. We just went up, loaded our stuff, just in a car, left the rest of the stuff, and just left. It was that kind of a thing. And we went and stayed in a motel. And my grandparents had a place in Sarasota, and we had visited them on the way back. Visited my grandmother because my grandfather had died on our way down, and my mother and her sisters took her back to Denver. So they had before they sold it, the place was empty, and so we asked if we could stay there, So sure, and so we drove to Sarasota, and we had this beautiful place, like right on the beach. From living how we were, we had this beautiful apartment, right on the beach. We had a swimming pool. We could go swimming. We could go and I had. We had some money because I put it in the Clearwater Bank. So I had about $1,000. So we went and got the money, and we went down there, and I could have, but then we just, it was like a couple of days just to kind of then we realized, look, we don't want to be declared, so the only thing we can do is route out. So I called from there, and I'm immediately patched through to Franny, right? Who says, all's forgiven, Golds, just come back. I go, I'm not going to come back to the studio. That's it. I've had it with this. I'm going to route out. She says, are you sure? And she says, and I said, yeah, okay. And so then we drove back, and that was really interesting, routing out of the Sea Org from there. Because I don't know other people have routed out. It's like they do everything they can to make it very difficult.
Yeah. Well, Paul and I blew because we knew if we tried to route out, we would be pulled into ethics, kept under guard, and not being able to do anything. And it's like you want to get on with your life, and I've seen people held for a year trying to route out.
Well, it was pretty bad, but when I went there, I said, we're routing out, but we're going to go back. We're not living here anymore. We have a place to stay, so we'll be here every day to route out, and then we're going to leave and go back to back to Sarasota every night. And we'd go through, and sometimes you spend a whole day sitting outside somebody's office to sign your outing form, the whole day. And
Plus, you're persona non grata. People won't talk
nobody
to you.
can talk to you. You're evil.
Oh yeah.
They take it, and it's like you got a guard on you the whole time. So I have a guard on me.
The sad thing is what is it, 2025 right now, and that was 1978. Fran is still there. Fran Harris is last we know.
Fran is still there?
Yeah,
she's still there.
She's still alive. She's still there.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, and Fred Harris is still there. He's a reg right now, a registrar.
Wow.
He and Dave Foster.
They're still there. What about Harriet? Is she around?
I don't know if she's around or not.
Yeah,
but Dave's, I think, in his 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I think
she was
Harriet's
on the RPF. I told you before. Harriet and I,
Jana, I think Stu Moreau told us Harriet's no longer alive. She's gone.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. But but it didn't bother me so much because I go, look, I can go through this all day. And I would say to them, you need to eat. Of course, they'd feed you rice and beans. And I went, look, I live in Central America. Rice and beans are fine. Plus, I'm going to be eating steak tonight. What are you eating? That's okay. Tonight I'll be by the pool. I'll be relaxing with my daughter. Maybe I'll take a swim. I'm going to watch some TV. And it was just drive these guys crazy,
Right.
And so it was a couple of months, I think we were there doing that routing out. But every night we'd go back. And and then then they want to do the last step is the sec checks before you go. And that's where they almost got Rebecca. That's where they did.
Now, Rebecca had been an auditor at this point?
I think she you mean when we went back there? I can't remember. Either she was auditing her in Qual or something. I don't remember what she was doing.
She was on tech lines.
Yeah. The only time she was ever not on tech lines when LRH made her that program's chief for that time. But other than that, she was either auditing or in Qual, pretty much. And but the sec check was very tough on her. The whole thing was really rough on her. And me, it didn't bother me that much. That's all I was worried about. And so in the sec check, I just FN through the whole thing. They'd ask me a question. I go, look, I'm so glad I'm leaving. This is fantastic. Thank you. Your needle's floating. It's like that kind of stuff. And I even remember Franny coming down on the right, says, on the routing, if you leave, don't you realize other people leave? Don't you care? And I go, I don't care. That's not my problem. What, are you trying to guilt me into staying? This is stupid.
Right.
So I made it through my sec check very quickly. I just FN through it but Rebecca was like 8 hours, and it was very tough, and it scared the crap out of me.
Well, she also had her brother there. Amos was still there.
Amos was still there. Amos was auditing. That's right. Amos was auditing in tech. That's right. He was married to his second wife at the time, somebody by the name of Catherine. Catherine was her.
Oh, Catherine. I didn't know her.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I never knew her before. Very, very pretty woman. Yeah, Catherine was her name. Then she was married to somebody else when he was in L.A., a little short woman. Then he ended up with Daly.
Yeah, Daly, but he was married to Sharon Rice on the ship.
That was it. Was that who it was? Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah.
I'm trying. Maybe that was was she with him out in L.A. when he was in the PAC area?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, maybe he had 4 wives. I don't know.
But when he passed, he was married to Daly.
Yeah, and he was married to Daly for a long time. Long time. Yeah.
Mike, let me ask you a question. Now, looking back on it now, after, hindsight is 20/20 and all that, how would you sum up as to why at that time you were, just for our viewers, why were you leaving? Because you'd worked for Hubbard, you'd worked with Mary Sue, you did the stuff with Denver and all that. What was it that was like, this is it, I don't want to be part of this anymore? What was it?
Because, they were doing things that they weren't really expanding Scientology at all. The way they were running and managing orgs, they were running them into the ground. They didn't know what they were doing, and I was here having to work with these people. I just didn't want to be around it anymore. I mean, I just didn't feel I could get anything done. That was the real reason. I didn't feel I could get anything done, and I felt it was just a bad environment for me, and also probably the reason I left at that time was with my kids, because I didn't want to, because of Shayna and because of the baby that she was pregnant with. I didn't want to raise kids in that anymore. Right. That was probably the primary reason right at that time.
Right. I know when I left, it's like you get to a point where whatever they do to you, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
As I got threatened with declare, I'm like, so what? I don't care anymore.
At this point, it wouldn't have mattered. You're right. I didn't care at that point. I didn't want to get declared, and so that's why we did the routing out. We went through it all. So we finally, she made it through the sec check. She almost broke, but she didn't. And then the final thing was going to the GO. That was the final thing for me.
Can I make one last point?
Yeah.
You probably were like us when we left. we still considered ourselves Scientologists
Oh
when we were.
yeah,
We still
oh yeah. I
believed in
was a
Hubbard and the
Scientologist.
tech and all that. We just didn't
Sure.
want to deal with
I just didn't
miscavige and
want to be in the
management and all that
SEAL.
crap. Yeah.
Exactly. I just didn't
It
want to be in
changed
that.
later, but yeah.
There
No,
wasn't any
I get it.
miscavige then, I don't think.
Right.
It was
No.
just
No.
so, it was, no, he wasn't around. It was just the way it was done. I didn't feel I could get anything done. And I just felt it was a joke, the whole thing. Especially after what we'd done in Denver, and then to have to come back and watch this and watch these orgs and be treated like this. To hell with you guys,
Yeah.
But I was still a Scientologist, but I just didn't want to be there anymore. I didn't want to be in the
Okay,
Sea
good.
Org.
I'm sorry. Now you carry on. I just wanted to
No,
make that
that's
clear
fine.
for
No
everybody.
problem.
Yeah.
No problem. And so the last step was going through the GO, and I had to sign. They wanted me to sign something before I left, and I started to read this thing they wanted me to sign, and it was all full of lies. All this stuff that they'd supposedly culled out of my PC folders and stuff, and all this crap and this and stuff they could and I go, that's not true. Well, I said, what part's not true? Well, the whole thing. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I said, you want me to sign something to say I won't divulge information I had about the counts and all that? Fine, but I'm not signing this. Well, what do you want us to change? I wouldn't even know where to begin. And they wanted. Well, finally, I just said, you know what? I've had it. I've done it. I've been here 2 months. You want me to sign something that's a bunch of lies? I'm leaving. You want to declare me? Declare me. That was it. So they didn't declare me. I just left. I never signed the damn thing. And then we left, and we went back to Denver, right? Which was what a wonderful trip. Going back, it was just like this huge relief to be out of it. And so then we go back to Denver and started working with my dad. And my brother was there, who he started working when Rebecca and I were doing it. He'd come from college and he was working there, and he kind of trained under, and then he came on staff. So when I left and they did that, all the people I recruited to the org, like family and friends, they all left at the same time, left staff. So my brother was back working at my dad's place, and my dad wanted to retire, and he said, maybe you guys can come in and work in the thing, and I'll turn the business over to you. Okay, that sounds good, and so we were doing okay. We each bought a house, we were going to buy, this right. But, so this was going okay. Yeah.
I had a question. Were you instructed do not contact Denver staff? I mean, because everybody knew you in Denver. Were you supposed to stay away from them? Did Scientology tell you that, or could you interact with people and that type of thing?
I'm trying to remember. I don't remember.
Okay,
I don't really remember. I think I was, but I don't know. I don't remember. I just remember being back there and working at my dad's, and we're doing that. And it was like right before we moved into a house. I remember we weren't even there, maybe less than a year, maybe about a year. I don't know. But I get this call on the phone, and it's the guy. He was a guy who used to be in mission briefing at Flag. His name was John something or other. And he
Nelson.
was, maybe
Little
it was John
Nelson.
Because he was now up at Over the Rainbow. And he was one of the guys that used to stamp WDC on stuff.
Big John Nelson. That would have been the big John Nelson.
It was somebody like thought it was.
With a beard.
I think so. But he was on mission from the WDC, from Over the Rain, wherever, SU, we used to call it, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, special unit.
Yeah. So he was on a mission from there, and he was sent to Denver. He says, I'm in Denver, and I need to talk to you for LRH. I'm on a mission for LRH, and I need to talk to you. Sure. So I met him at a like a Denny's or something, right? And basically said, since you've left, all the stuff you wrote up about on Flag, because I was writing LRH when I was there about management the whole time. I didn't hear back, but I was writing stuff up and telling them how screwed up things were. And so when I got in, what he says that LRH, everything you said was correct. And the org is crap. Would you come back? And I go, I'm not going back there. No, I'm not. He says, well, would you be willing to go back? The Denver org has crashed since you left. The guy crashed it, and the stats are down. Would you be willing to go back into the org and fix? You're here in Denver. Would you go in there and get the org back going again? And I said, I told him, I'm not going in there full time, but I'll tell you what, I will go in there in the evenings and the weekends, and I will get the stats back up into the ranges where it was when I left. And I can do it on the evenings and the weekends. He goes, really? I go, yep, I'll do that. Now, I'll tell you what I want. Number one, he cancels my freeloader debt. And there was another thing where when I borrowed money from his birthday fund to go on leave from Flag originally, I borrowed it based on money that we basically had in AOSHDK. Because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but before I even met Rebecca, this is probably in 70, this probably happened. Her grandmother died and left her an inheritance. And Owen Starkey was the regging then, and he had gone to her and said, look, we have this mission who is sending us this money, and it won't be in until next week, and we need it. And I know you got some money, so if you give us $8,000, which was most of what she had, if you give us this money, then we'll pay it back next week when we get the money in. But we need it for the GI right now, So they talked her into giving her the money, and of course, they never gave the money back, ever. Right. So when I was at the ship, this is some years, I proposed. I said, I was trying to get the money back, and Wally Burgess was on mission there, and I had sent something through, see if he could try to get it back from there at the time. But when I wrote LRH, I said, I want to borrow this money, but I'll pay it back when I get this money. And I told him the story about that. I don't think he cared, but I said, okay, right. So, but that's where the money was supposed to come from. So while I was in Denver, I was getting calls trying to collect the money I owed him, right? And I was saying, I owe it to him, but here's how, and nobody would say anything. So now that I've got his ear, I said, and what I want is, there is money, and I told him the story, the money that I owe you from the birthday fund, it's from this like $8,000, $9,000, this money that was on account for Rebecca. And so what I want is I knew I would never get cash out of the GO. They never allow cash to come out. So I said, I want all that money. Once yours is out, I want the money put on account at AOLA at staff prices from that time, which means that I get auditing at AOLA at $25 an hour, and I have all my OT levels, because I was OT3, but I didn't do the other OT levels. So to pay for all my OT levels at those old prices, and for Rebecca and I there, and my freeloader had canceled, and this to be done when I get the stats back up. And he agreed. Went up lines, and then John got back to me and said, okay, says okay. So I said, okay, one more, there was one other thing that I asked, is that if I go in there, I do it myself. I don't have the GO, I don't have management flag. I do it what I want, and I don't do anything they want me to do. The hell with them, I'm on my own. I'm totally autonomous. And if you agree to that, all these terms, then I'll go do it. And he did. So I went in the evenings and on the weekends, and it was great. I went back and saw a lot of the staff, and started getting things going just in the evenings. Then I would turn things over during the day to other people because I was working on my dad's. And we got the stats back up. And it's like if a mission came in, we get a flag mission come in, or a flag recruitment, or they want coming in to do regging, I just have them turned away at the door. Wouldn't even let them in the order. Just tell them that the reception, they come in here, they're out. They're not allowed in here. What are you talking about? We're on a flag. I don't care. Out. You're not taking anybody from here. Out. So it was great. It was so much fun, because I could tell them all to get stuff. Anything that come down to the flag, I would just say, we're not doing that. That's stupid. Go away. And got the stats back up back into those ranges. And then I just turned it over and left. And now I was just a public for the first time in all these years. I wasn't a freeloader anymore. Yeah.
Before we get into you being public and elsewhere, I want to just go back to the birthday contribution fund, because we've never explained that to anybody.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so people won't know what the BCF is.
Oh, you're right. I think, wasn't it where people gave money to LRH or something? How did they gave gifts? They would go into that fund.
No, what happened was they didn't know what to give him, so they collected money.
Oh.
And I think it was West US that did it.
You're
but
talking
they
about for his
collected
birthday?
money
For his
for his
birthday, right?
birthday. For
Yeah.
L. Ron Hubbard's birthday, he was given a whole chunk of money. And he's like, I can't accept that. So what was done was, because he couldn't accept it, he then came up with the idea of making the birthday contribution fund. So it was in an account that was run by finance on the ship. And it was so that the staff, the Sea Org members on the ship, if they needed money, they could borrow from that fund.
Right. Right.
And so when all the musicians were going on leave and they didn't have money to pay for their airfare from Madeira or Lisbon to LA and back, they borrowed from the birthday contribution fund. And other crew members, if they had an emergency, their grandmother died and they had to go to the funeral, they borrowed from that fund, and then it was deducted from their paycheck every week to repay it.
Right. Out of their $10. Yeah, it was like
Yeah, out
$5.
of the $10. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was where I went with the rest, at the same time with the other musicians. But I said, no, I'm going to pay it back to you out of this money, because I figured,
Right.
we get the money back that way, because they're not going to screw LRH.
Right. Exactly.
And he didn't care and they didn't care. So anyway, so I never did, but we got all that money. And so the funny thing was by now, like the Purif had come out. So I did the Purif there in Denver. And then I went out to get some auditing in LA. And I remember the reg there at AOLA was Mike Silverman. He was a reg forever. And I thought that guy was going to have a coronary, having to invoice me out for $25 an hour. He couldn't, for $625 for an intensive at AO. He's like, it was like, he almost couldn't do it. He was like shaking. It was so hard for him. But yeah, it was great. And when I went out there, I think I stayed with Nate's first wife,
Mary
Jessup. I stayed with Mary and with the two kids that he'd abandoned. And
he did abandon them.
And who had taken care of those kids, and was the parents. Was his parents had taken care of them for years, and she went back. They paid for her to go back to go to law school, which she became a lawyer, and she didn't live very far from the complex, so I stayed with them on the couch there with the boys and her, and then I would just walk over to the complex to get auditing, and so yeah, so it was kind of nice, at the time.
Mary is who pierced my ears when I was 11 years old on the ship.
Really?
Child abuse.
Oh my God.
Down in the woman's dorm, yeah.
That was Mary. I didn't know that. I didn't even know she was on the ship.
Yeah, she and the boys were on the ship.
Were they
Nate was over on the Avon River as the staff captain #1 over HCOs. And Mary, I don't remember what she was doing, but yeah, she had the two boys there, and she and I became friends, or I had no mother, so Mary kind of took me under her wing. And when I mentioned I wanted my ears pierced, she went and got the ice and a needle and thread and pierced them.
Child abuse.
Well, the two boys, they wonder, Sylvie and Nathaniel. Nathaniel passed away.
No, I didn't know.
Back in '96, he had cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he passed away. And Sylvie's still around. He's out in LA. And,
okay.
Still, my son's very close with them.
They were like Mike, 4 or 5 years old.
Yep, they were little kids.
Mike, when you were back on lines doing auditing, what was Rebecca? Was she back and helping you at all at the org, or when you were doing that? Or what?
No, she was just watching the kids. We had a new baby. He was born right after. My son Adam was born in 1979. Right. He was born so he was a little kid back then. She was busy with the kids and doing that. And so I'd either work or this is just part. I just go down to the orgs at night. That's all. And just go in. It wasn't that hard. It was just one org. And it was easy if you didn't have anybody messing with you. And the fact that I didn't have didn't have to mess with the flag or the GO or any of those people, it was easy. And so anyway, that was an okay time. So then I'm back at this point working at my dad's. My brother and my sister, who had also been on staff, was the receptionist there at my dad's place. So that was going pretty well. And this was 1980 by now, right? And then my sister comes up. She says, "You have a phone call on line 2." And I go, "Well, why'd you go?" She says, "It's Diana Hubbard." What? I don't know how she got my number there. So she called me at my dad's place, and so I get on the phone with Diana. How you doing? What's going on? And then she tells me, she starts saying that we're in real trouble. She told me she hadn't been in touch with her father. She hadn't talked to him. That its church is being taken over. And that nobody, they don't really give a damn about Div 6. They're just interested in, all the money and other stuff. And so they kind of leave her alone. And she thought that this is the only area that maybe we can do something to fix the church, to take it over, because, and she said, my parents trusted you, and I would like you to help me. Would you come down? And I said, I don't think it can be done from there. I said, if you want to do it, if you want to do it really, you've got to be done from the field, and I'm not coming back down to flag. So I'll tell you what, let me sit down and let me do my own eval. Let me sit down and do an evaluation and figure out something. I'll get back to you. Because she shut me up. I still have that folder that she sent me. Somewhere I even have the letters, because I said, send me all the information. And she actually sent it to me in the mail. And I have a whole bunch. I have it somewhere. I didn't remember, but I know I still have it. It was in a brown, brown manila envelope, and that she sent to my work there about what was going on and all this kind of stuff.
This is around the time of the Mission Holder Conference and the finance police.
No, before that. This is 19.
Oh, before that.
This is 1980. This is like around May of 1980. A little bit before that. It's 1980. So this is when things are starting to get crazy. And like she said, she hadn't talked to her dad. Things were really crazy, and that she knew things were something was going to happen. And at the church, right, she knew about it. Something was wrong, and they weren't bothering her. It was the only area, because everything else was being kind of changed. Yeah.
Janice, this was a time when he left for good, right? From Hemet, right?
Yeah.
1980, May 1980.
No, because he left in February, March 1980 is when he left X in Hemet and disappeared for several years. Yeah.
Well, this was probably March.
Several years until he died. He never returned.
No, but this is before May. This is before May. I'm pretty sure. I'm trying to remember. Maybe not. Anyway, maybe it was just May of 1980. That's what. So what I did is I sat down. I did this kind of. I've been working on stuff like this for years on my own with the book one. That was a big thing, so what I came up with. I don't remember the whole eval, but remember my whole thing was the one time when Scientology was really when things were really expanding. The only time was in the 50s when book one came out. And then it was like all these dynamic counseling groups pop up. You couldn't stop it. And all this stuff was going. And he'd been trying to get something like that going for years, and nothing ever worked. Nothing.
Right.
And so, but that was the time. And basically, what I came up with was that people were out there just doing book one. They were, and that's how I got in. So many people got in that way, and they were just auditing. And so my whole idea is that, and one of the reasons why they quit is once you start putting in the other bridge, a lot of these auditors, they weren't that competent at what they were doing, because book one, they weren't competent necessarily. And so they just quit. And so my idea is that we need to really not just promote the book, we need to get an application of that book back. This is the Div 6. All this other stuff we're doing in Div 6 is a joke. Yeah.
Just for our audience again, book one is Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental
Modern
Health.
Science of Mental Health. His first book. And when that came out, that book was like, I think it was only the full book that he wrote, page cover to cover. All the rest were compilations, really. But this book, in it, contained a person could go audit book one. They don't need anything else. They could just do that. And then all that stuff that he was trying to do on the ship with me, with that, what was that thing? With the
expanded Dianetics.
With the ministers, the volunteer ministers. The only program on his whole thing to me when I was OH Properties Chief that had anything to do with grassroots was the volunteer ministers program. Everything else was how to get money out of people online. So it was the only thing on the ship about that program that I thought had any value, but I thought his idea of volunteer ministers was stupid and it was corny and it wasn't the right way to do it. And then when I was doing this eval, I realized, oh my God, you don't need a volunteer minister's handbook. You got the handbook. It's called DMSMH. That's it. That's all we ever needed. So why not use it? Because it had been relegated to historical data, basically. Nobody applied that anymore, and so my idea was to really get that out there and train people as book one auditors, but as competent ones, right? And so I looked and there wasn't any course that I knew of that trained competent auditors. Most of them were just these courses that they did, extension courses that were done just to get people on lines in the org, right? Just as a Div 6. It wasn't really to train an auditor. Nobody was really auditing book one. That's why you had Dianetics Today with all that other stuff in it. Well, you don't need any of that. You just need book one, and you don't need all these other programs. This is it. So I totally, and so when I finished it, I told my whole thing was to set up. What I want to do is to set up a company outside the church to deliver this outside the church, the whole thing, to where we don't have any contact with the church. Because his whole thing, because I kind of based it on his ideas for the volunteer ministers program. It's just that it was corny, right? And part of his idea was that the volunteers ministers, and you got to understand, like I might have mentioned in one of the other video, is that this program, like I'm speaking, that he gave to me on the tape that he made for me, it never happened like that. It just became another volunteer minister, just something they delivered in Div 6. Originally, his idea was that it was a grassroots thing and that these volunteer ministers were not part of the org and they only went in to get word cleared on their book, and they weren't under any management. They were managed by one person on the ship, which was going to be me, but then it was Fred Harris when I left, right? So this, in other words, this is, to me, this was it. It's outside the org, but I don't want anybody managing it. I'll start up a separate company outside the church to deliver these services, a regular profit-making company, right? Not nonprofit, just do it, because that was anyway. So I figured, this is the way it's got to be done, but I can't do anything without Diana, of course. So I said, I went over with her on the phone. She's okay. Wow. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'm not doing anything till you approve this, but I'm not coming there and I'm not setting up lines. You got to come to Denver and approve it. She says, okay, I'll meet you at the airport. So she flew into Denver to the airport at that time was Stapleton International. And I met her at the airport and she sat down and went through the whole eval. And I said, all I need from you is air cover. That's all. Because these guys are going to come after me and you got to run me air cover. And she says, okay, what we'll do is anytime they come, what are you doing? It's a special project under Diana. Oh, as long as I have that thing there, that's what it is, they leave me alone. It's a special project under Diana, right? So that's how we set it up. Now, this is before the whole mission holder conference and everything. This is like I said, this is early on. So she approved it, and then the plane went back to Clearwater, right? So now that I had her signature, I knew I could get started on this thing. So Diana before she left, she signed the thing, and now she was going to give me air cover, and I was able to get started. And that's, then it's like getting started to get this whole book one thing started. So,
All right. Okay. Good.
So that's a good place where, like in an hour here, that'll be a mystery sandwich for the next video in terms of what happened next,
okay,
for everybody
cool.
out there. Yeah, I've been enjoying
and you know
this.
what? And Sector 9 is still a mystery sandwich.
It's true.
Oh, that's a little later. That's a little bit, not too much. That's a couple of years later. Okay, good.
That's good. Well, hold on a sec here. What's not a mystery sandwich is I've been taking Janice's complete liquid multivitamins here for the last week. And I got to tell you, it's one of the easiest things I've ever done. You literally fill up half a shot glass, you take it, it sticks to the side, so you put some water in it, you drink it. And it's the easiest way to take vitamins I've ever had. It tastes good as long as you shake it up and as long as you put it in the fridge. It's peach flavored, but it's got all the vitamins you need and all the nutrients and stuff. And so I just wanted to put in my own personal plug. You could order it down below at our site in the description. Janice's complete liquid multivitamins from Outback Natural. So I just wanted to mention that.
Well, thank you, Mark. I'm glad you brought that up. I appreciate it. And I must agree with you. It is a good product.
It's really easy. I can't stand taking lots of pills, but it's so simple, and it's like you forget about it. I do it in the morning. It's like, yeah, it's done,
Well, your dad always had good products, right?
Oh, yeah, he did.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had a good liquid vitamin, and when he sold the company, they wanted to just concentrate on one product, so they got rid of all the rest of the products. So that's when I was like, you know what, this sold well. And so that's where Paul and I sat down and created this.
It's dynamite.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it's passed down in the family.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Well, I want to ask everybody, please subscribe to our channel. Hit that like button, rock slam it, like Janice likes to say. We really appreciate all the viewers that are out there. We've got a solid core audience that watches our stuff, and we really appreciate it. But also, if you've got new friends or new people that might be interested in this, please encourage them to subscribe and hit that notification button. If you've got any questions or comments about what we talked about, of course, go down below. We read them all. We do answer them, and we appreciate any feedback that you might have. And, of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link in the description. It's a simple way to send some money, send some love, whatever you want to do towards our channel. The money we get just goes back into, producing the shows and stuff. Janice and I, trust me, we would never get rich off of this. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. All right, Mike or Janice, is there anything else you want to say before we end off the show here?
Good show, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. I'd really enjoy it. And thank you for watching. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.
Bye.